This is the first video in a new series I'm doing called Projects. The idea is that I'm going to be doing small projects which are easy, fun, quick, and also easy to do on a budget and in a small space. So most of the work is going to be done on this cutting mat, which is in front of me here on my desk, with the occasional things done outdoors like spray painting. They'll all be cosplay related projects. Quite a lot of them will be influenced by or directly related to Star Wars. If you haven't seen the rest of my videos, go check them out. You'll soon find out I'm quite a big Star Wars fan. So for the first project, it's just going to be a simple one. I'm going to show you how I went about painting up this Nerf gun, taking you through the steps involved and how to get a durable finish. You can almost see this as version 2 of my How to Paint a Nerf Gun series. About a year ago, I did a video on how I painted another Nerf gun, and I've got another Firestrike actually. But I've learned a lot since then about spray painting, whatever. And so this is a updated version with better techniques involved. Of course, there are many different techniques people use, all variations of the same thing, but this is how I did it. It's not necessarily the right way, it's not necessarily the wrong way, it's how I've done it, so enjoy. So the first thing you want to do is take apart the blaster. There's a load of screws which are very small, so it's good to put them in a pot to keep them safe. You take out the internals, again put them somewhere safe, and then I took some 80 grit sandpaper and sanded down all the smooth finish so the paint will stick to it better. You want to try and make sure to get into all the little nooks and crannies to make sure that the paint sticks all over and it doesn't peel off in some places. You want to make sure all the dust comes off, and then the next thing to do is to get some primer. I just got some Wilco white primer spray. Spray it white, or whatever your base coat might be. And I did 4 coats on the outside and 1 on the inside, just to make sure the inside was covered. And the next thing to do is to masking tape over any areas you want to keep as your base colour. So in my case, white. So here I'm just using a little craft knife just to cut up the masking tape to the right shapes and sizes. I'm just having 2 stripes, 1 on each side of my blaster. The more complicated design you do, the more fiddly this will be. I just went for a simple one just to begin with, as it was the first time doing this sort of thing for me. But even so, it does take a while. And you want to make sure as well that you push all the tape down into all the little ups and downs, bumps all over the blaster to make sure paint doesn't escape in places where you don't want it to go. The next thing is your next coat. So I'm using black here. As you can tell, that can was quite empty, so this is now a day later and I had to go out and buy some more black paint. Then you take off the masking tape, and I only did 2 colours, so plus a few extra things in a minute. So yep, taking off the masking tape now. You want to peel it off carefully to make sure you don't peel off any of the paint itself. Ideally you'd use painter's tape rather than masking tape, as on mine you can see in some places the paint's seeped underneath a bit. But for me this was fine, so I'm going to weather it later. So here I'm just using silver acrylic paint to add in some details. So just painting in the Nerf logo, some of the screws, the little pattern things on there, and the word Firestrike up there. And I'm just dabbing paint onto the texture there just to make sure it doesn't go into the deep grooves of it, but stays on top though. And I found that particularly on the white paint bit, it needed 2 coats, so just going over doing another coat of it. And here I'm weathering it, so I'm just using some black paint, a piece of tissue and some water, just to dab on some black paint first, and then rub as much of it off as possible with the tissue. Sometimes I'd use a paintbrush as well to get it into the deeper grooves and around the details. But but the idea is you want to try and put on a load of black paint and then rub off as much as possible, and then it'll get stuck in all the little cracks and grooves and whatever in the texture of the blaster. That'll just make it look a bit older. So this is why using masking tape for me wasn't so much of a problem. So here's a slowed down bit just to show you what I'm doing. So yeah, I'd get a bit of black paint on the paintbrush, make sure the paintbrush is nice and wet, paint it over the area to weather, and then just wipe it off with the tissue. And again. So once you finish, you need to let that dry. I let it dry overnight, and then I put on some varnish spray. So I'm using clear varnish here, which comes out a shiny sort of texture. It turns, if you want to use satin, that'll come out smoother, less shiny, but I wanted to go for a shiny look. So then the final thing to do is just put it all back together again. So if you can remember how it all went back together, then great. If not, then you can find pictures on the internet or take a photograph of it once you've taken the first shell off in the first place. So put it back together carefully, and then you've got all the screws to go back in as well. And after that, you're done. And this is the final piece. So I've put the battery cover back on. There's batteries inside, so the laser targeter thing now lights up, as you can see. It works fully, so... And I've now lost that, but never mind. I'll find it later. So yeah, the spring pull is just as normal, nice and decent tension to it. The trigger's slightly bit more torsion required, a bit more pressure required to get it to pull, but hardly much. It's just because a bit of paint got inside the rim in there, which, if necessary, I could go back in and sand it later, but it's really not worth my time, to be honest with you. As you saw, actually, I had to sand off a tiny bit of paint from the rod in here holding on this switch, just so that going properly. That might be something you might find you'll have to do for various other parts around the blaster, depending on how much paint gets into the lines around the seam. But to compare it to my other one I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is my other one I did about a year ago, and it's all hand painted acrylic and then actually hand painted on varnish. And while it's still quite cool, I quite like it still, I'd definitely say this one's an upgrade. Definitely an upgrade. Although it is nice to have 2 5 strikes now. That just looks quite cool, dual wielding those two. But yeah, the finish of this one is much more durable. It's much smoother, much nicer. And yeah, very happy with that. So thanks for watching. If you like the video, hit like, hit subscribe, check out my other videos. As I mentioned earlier, I've got lots of different videos out already, lightsaber reviews. I'm going to be releasing more project videos in the coming months. I'm hoping to do one a month, although my time is pretty limited. Yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments box below. Thanks for watching.